Welcome back to the Relationships Made Simple for Men podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Bauer. Just one item of housekeeping. I will be hosting a men's retreat in St. George, Utah on September 26th to September 29th. If you want more info, you can email me at bryce@brycebauer.com. This is my fifth year running it. We'll do a mix of men's groups, a fire and ice experience, and there will be plenty of time to hang out and have fun, play pickleball, volleyball, go swimming, paddleboarding. It's a really good time. People come back year after year. It's really a vacation for the mind, body, and soul. Okay, so today let's talk about relationship anxiety. This is something I'm really familiar with professionally because it's usually the more anxious person that comes in to get help. They're the ones that feel more pain, they think about it more, and they're the ones that are more likely to reach out for support. And it is usually the case in a committed partnership that the less secure it becomes, one person feels more anxious than the other. And both of you probably know who that is. It's not a problem, it's normal to feel at least a little bit of relationship anxiety, but when it gets too intense, it can be unmanageable. The patterns get worse, there's more disconnection, and then usually at some point, one or both people start considering whether or not they want to be in this relationship at all. Can we make it work? Can we both be happy? Can we figure this thing out and really enjoy spending time with each other and handle all of life's challenges? So I want to break this into two parts because in my experience, there are usually two different perspectives to relationship anxiety. The first is the person who is more anxiously attached. They tend to want to lean into connection and really talk about things when there's relational stress. Stan Tatkin calls them the waves. And then there is the person who wants to lean away from connection or talking about things when there's relational stress. They need to be by themselves. And Stan Tatkin, who is a well-known marriage and family therapist, calls them the islands. And how this presents can be anywhere from subtle to extreme. For instance, I am more of an island. So sometimes when Jenny and I are in a conflict, I need to step away and take space. It doesn't mean that I don't want to talk about things, but sometimes I just need a little bit of time by myself to center and to ground, to stop taking in more information or stimulus in order to relax my nervous system. And Jenny can be more of the opposite, where she can feel really concerned about me and how I'm feeling and want to come in and fix it and talk about it. And we've really done a lot of work on our attachment style. So she's also okay taking space. In fact, sometimes she wants to take space. We've really found a way to balance this out pretty well, but we work on this every day, and not everyone has the time and the space or the know-how to work on this. So I'm going to give you some guidance and highlight what might be going on behind the scenes for you. So the person who is more anxious in the relationship is constantly asking themselves these three questions. Are you going to leave me? Are you going to hurt me? And will I always be anxious? These are their worst fears, because if someone leaves you, yeah, that's going to be painful. That's going to suck. Or two, maybe you're going to hurt me, but I'm so attached to you that I won't be able to leave and you will continue to hurt me. Or three, maybe you don't hurt me, but I just feel anxious all the time and I don't like it. I constantly need reassurance. I become an annoyance to you, and I basically self-sabotage the relationship because of my anxiety. All three of these are really negative outcomes, and they are very valid fears because all three of these things could happen. Someone can leave you. You might not even see it coming. Someone could die. Your partner could have an affair or be really mean and disrespectful to you, constantly dominate you, or turn your anxiety back onto you to make it all your fault. And it's also a reality that because of the way we're wired, we will feel anxiety in the relationship. That's also just part of being human and living life, but it can be heightened even more when another person is included. It's a high stakes relationship. There is a lot to lose. And especially if you've had difficult experiences in your past with your parents or primary caregivers, or past partners. Maybe you've never really been in a relationship where you didn't have intense anxiety. Of course, you're going to worry that it's never going to stop and never going to get better. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because I think the first step is to make space for what is currently and not be in a fantasy that you will completely get rid of all these thoughts and all of your anxiety. It's more a question of, can we hold it and work with it in a way that's manageable? And can our partner understand us and help us work through that in a way that builds more security, that our relationship can handle our anxiety, our patterns, our fears? Now, if you're single and you're considering getting into a relationship, even the thought might be really scary. You know that you're able to handle yourself on your own, but as soon as you get into a relationship, all of that anxiety comes forward. What do you do about that? There's a few tips that I will give you. The first is that you have to have someone to talk to. Now, whether that's a professional or a friend, you need someone who you can go to help ground you and hold space for you. Everyone needs a person like that in your life. So if it's not your partner, you need to find somebody else. It really helps to learn how to do this co-regulation dance with somebody who knows how to do this dance, someone who is skilled in listening and validating and asking good questions. Everyone needs someone like that in their life, or a group of people that can do this. So whether it's getting professional help or signing up for some support group, I recommend finding a place to land. Dealing with this all on your own, like trying to work what's going on in your head while you're already in your head, doesn't work. You cannot think yourself out of overthinking. And a professional will also be able to diagnose whether or not you have something that needs a higher level of care. Is this more general anxiety that you can learn to manage on your own? Or do you need to do some deep trauma work? Or do you have some mental health issue that requires more treatment or potentially medication? Sometimes you just don't know until you talk to a professional. Another tip I have, and this goes for everybody, but especially those that experience relationship anxiety, is you have to learn how to meditate. And when I think about meditation, the utility of it, it really is the practice of being able to hold all of our experience, what's going on in our mind, what's happening in our body, and to even be able to step back from that, detach from this experience of constantly self-referencing, self-absorption in our mind, and to just be. And this is something that I can tell people about, but you really have to have a first person experience with it in order to understand it. And I think this is why sometimes people will turn to psychedelics, ayahuasca retreats, because that can put you in that place quicker. It doesn't necessarily teach you how to get there, but it can give your mind a break or give you the experience of seeing what's possible, how your experience of your mind can change. So those are two of my tips. Get some help and learn how to meditate. Education also helps too. Listening to this podcast or reading more about anxious attachment can help validate your experience. It can be really powerful to just know, okay, this is what's happening with me right now. This is normal. It doesn't have to be a huge problem. It can get better. Here are some new ways to work with it, etc. The reality is that it is possible to overcome, to a pretty high degree, your anxiety about something. I know for me, just in the last 10 years, I feel like I've almost completely cured my social anxiety. Now, I'm still terrified to do public speaking. I don't know if that's something I want to do. I have done it a handful of times. I still feel anxious sometimes meeting new people, going to parties or get-togethers, or even getting on coaching calls sometimes, but it doesn't register the same way that it used to. I have a lot of security within myself, a lot of confidence that even though it feels intense, I can handle it, I can manage it. And so I consider that a cure. And this is something that I dealt with my entire life. As a little kid, I was super shy, barely talked, and I really, really struggled with the relationship to myself while in the presence of other people, even though sometimes people didn't even know because I was good at masking it. So if I can recover from that, there's a good chance that you can recover from your relationship anxiety. It just takes time, it takes work, it takes education. Now, on the topic of will my partner hurt me, this can be an anxious thought that comes up. I highly suggest doing some research into what physical abuse and what emotional abuse really is. Now, physical abuse can be more obvious. No one should put their hands on you without your permission or stand in your way or take your stuff or even threaten to do some of those things. That's just purely not okay ever. But emotional abuse can be more subtle. From what I see, most couples have some levels of emotional abuse in the relationship, even if it's not conscious. So things like name calling or constantly turning things back around onto the other person who's bringing a complaint, that can be abusive. But it matters how often this is happening, how walled off your partner is, what they're doing to work on this or understand themselves more and self-reflect. And it can be helpful to get a professional's opinion to understand what you can tolerate and what you should not tolerate. And there's a lot I could say about this. I mean, not only is there emotional abuse, but there's emotional neglect, which isn't quite abuse, but it can really erode security and safety in the relationship. So I just want to plant that flag because your anxiety is probably not just you. It's also how your partner is showing up. And it can be difficult to know whose work is whose here. Is this just my anxiety coming forward? Or is my partner doing something or not doing something that would trigger anyone into feeling anxious or scared or angry or confused? You do not have to stay confused. If you're wondering about this, get some help. And I think that sums up everything I want to say about those that are anxious and are more anxiously attached. Now, those of us who have a more avoidant attachment style, the anxiety is going to be a little bit different. The questions are going to be different. And the two questions that avoidants are asking themselves in their head are, will I be trapped or feel trapped? Avoidants really value freedom. And will I be unhappy? Will I just stay stuck in this pattern with this person? It won't get better. Will I constantly have to make space to get away without being nagged or criticized or whatever you think is happening? And this is a really valid fear too, because some people who grew up with family members that constantly invaded their space or who had to grow up really quickly and become ultra independent never learned how to be in relationship with other people, at least intimately. They can do it on the surface, but when they get into a committed relationship, after a while, they will start to get uncomfortable. And especially if they're not managing their life stress, they can really start to go into their mental cave or maybe their physical cave. Men are more likely to do this and just self-soothe, watch TV, hang out with the guys, drink beer, smoke weed, play video games, whatever it is that helps them feel better. And they can really start to neglect their relationship. Logically, it makes sense. When I'm around you, I don't feel as good, or I feel anxious, or you have something to say to me. I don't know how to work it out. So why stay here? I'm going to go be by myself around other people that I don't feel like this around. And this can be a challenging thing to work with because, like I said before, the more anxiously attached person normally feels more of the pain, and the avoidant often feels less of the pain. And whether that's because they've compartmentalized it or they really just don't feel it because they're so used to being on their own, they are less likely to want to get help. They're the ones who get dragged into therapy. And again, this is often the man more than the woman, but it can be flipped. And they can have a really flippant, I don't care attitude. And that can trigger up the anxious person's anxiety way more. I don't care, whatever. That's the mantra of the avoidant. And sometimes I'll tell you what's going on in the background for me when I'm working with an avoidant is we really do have to amplify the pain. They need to see the consequence of them continually behaving this way and avoiding. They need to see the other person's loneliness and sadness and anger and face it head on. And not everyone wants to do this. Again, for them, it might be like, why do this? I'll just move on to somebody else or be by myself. And there's not much that anyone can do about that. But for most people, I trust in people's humanness, and their ability to have empathy. So normally, when someone sees that someone that they really care about is in pain, they do want to make it better. They know what that feels like. And sometimes it's just a matter of pointing it out to them. Do you want to keep hurting this person? Do you really want to go through this again and again? It's really not working for you. And there's a lot to be gained. Sometimes avoidants need to see the possibility of what can happen in a secure relationship, the possibility that this can really feel good. It can feel safe in relationship. They can help you. You don't have to do this all on your own. And usually the anxious person is gung-ho for that, right? They want to help. Helping often calms their nervous system. If I know what's going on with you and I feel like I can help, I'm there. And so for the avoidant, it's really letting people into their life, into their heart, into their mind, showing them that there is value there. It can work. Even though it didn't work in the past, even though you don't know what it would feel like, it is possible. And for avoidance, the work can be a little bit different, where I think they really do need to reflect on the consequences of them continuing to operate relationally in the way that they have. Really taking some time with this. I know for me, one of my biggest wake-up calls was when I was attending a 60-day wilderness therapy program as a client. And at the end of the program, we were given the opportunity to do a 4-day vision quest, which is basically where they would blindfold us and lead us into the woods, deep into the Appalachian Mountains. And we weren't too far from the guides' camp, maybe a half a mile. But because we were blindfolded, we didn't know where we were. I mean, I didn't know where I was even in the state of North Carolina, but we were led out, and this is a Native American tradition, to a prearranged campsite on our own, given a bag of food and a tarp and a sleeping bag, and told to listen for the drum beat on the 5th day and to walk towards the drum beat. Sounds simple enough, right? And I had really struggled in this program because I went from a place of having all this freedom. I was in college, I had my own car, I had some money, I could just do whatever I want. And then I was put into this environment where I was being watched constantly and having to do multiple groups every day and do therapy sessions. And I was really looking forward to not having anyone watching over my shoulder and telling me what to do or asking me how I was feeling. Like, that's what I thought I really wanted, was to be alone. So I was excited to go out there. And the first night was fine. I walked around, explored, climbed some trees, but after not really sleeping that well, the next morning, everything hit me. All of that loneliness, all of the sadness, all of the pain really hit me. And I broke down and cried for I don't know how long. Literally slumped against a tree, just bawling. I didn't even know why I was crying. I just knew that I was feeling a lot. And as I started to come out of that, I just got so tired. I was exhausted. I began to realize how much I wanted to be around people. Like, I wanted to talk to somebody all of a sudden. I missed my parents, and I had had a lot of conflict, especially with my dad. But all of a sudden, I wanted to see them. And over the course of the next few days, that really grew and became more clear to me. I mean, one, that I had really screwed up my life up until this point. I had to take responsibility for that. Two, that I really needed people in my life. And by the end of the vision quest, I stuck it out, followed the drum beat, was deliriously happy to see some of the other clients and guides again, just be around people. And I came out of that with a newfound gratitude for people and seeing how much I needed help. And that's carried with me ever since. I'm very coachable. It doesn't mean it completely resolved all of my avoidant attachment, because I still need to be by myself sometimes. That is still a part of me, but I am acutely aware of how important relationships are. And thus, this is why I do this work. I see it, I know it, I understand how minds work in relationship. And I'm still learning, but there's a lot that I've figured out since then. So that's my spiel. If you are someone who's avoiding in your relationship, it is worth learning how to trust people again. And I really feel sorry for anyone that hurt you or told you or showed you that relationships do not end well, do not work out. Okay, well, that is all I have to say about relationship anxiety. I'll see you next time. Peace.